Welcome to Conversations of Hope, shining light on the journey of healing from abuse and trauma. I'm Faith Ingraham of Speaking Truth in Love Ministries.
And I'm Michelle Viscuse from Journey Pink. As survivors and advocates, we're here to support, educate, and inspire. Whether you're a survivor of abuse, a friend, family member, or a professional working with survivors, this podcast is for you.
We're breaking the silence that allows abuse to thrive, offering insights for healing and tools for effective support.
Our goal is to create a safe community of understanding, healing, and hope for survivors and their allies.
Visit conversationsofhopepodcast.org for resources and more information. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We're back again on Conversations of Hope. And today I think we'll talk a little bit about self-worth and the lies that we tell each other as survivors of abuse. And not only survivors, I think that a lot of people struggle with their self-worth. So Michelle, let's talk a little bit about your struggles with self-worth, and then I'll talk a little bit about mine.
I wanted to always appear like everything was fine and that I was confident. And the reality is I was incredibly insecure, and I did not have a lot of self-worth at all. My self-esteem was incredibly low. And when I went to the counselor's office for the first time, one of the first things I said to her was, I feel like I'm a burden to others. Like I feel like people just put up with me or tolerate me. Like I don't feel worthy of friendships. I don't feel worthy of relationships. Like I just feel so less than. And then I said, I have like really mean voices in my head. And she's like, you do? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, what do they say? And I was like, they say things like, who do you think you are? No one likes you. Just don't say anything. No one cares. And just things like that. Like I'll just think these really mean thoughts. And so what I did once, we disclosed that information was I was sitting in church one Sunday and I had a little tiny notebook and I opened it up. It was one of those new little paper journals. And I opened it up and on the top line, I wrote, I am ... And as I went through the Bible and found verses that said who God says I am, I was making a list of a truth that defines who God created me to be and who He says I am, not what abuse has done to me or made me feel. And in the process of doing that, I would read a verse and it would tell me who God was. And so then I also flipped the page and at the top wrote God is, because abuse had also incredibly distorted my perception of God. I knew Santa Claus was good. I wasn't sure God was good, at least not to me. Like I felt like Jesus loved other girls, but maybe not me so much. Because you feel like, and I put this in my book and I've heard other survivors say it too, you feel like there's a mark or something on you that causes other people to harm you, that there's something wrong with you. Right. Just like that adultery from that movie, like with the A on the forehead. That's what it feels like. It feels like A for abuse, that you can abuse me. Something's wrong with me and you can abuse me. So it took a while for me to let those truths sink in and to make that list. And I think, it's great to have a starting point. So if someone has something out there that talks about like your identity in Christ, or you are a daughter of the King, then that's going to be a great starting point for you to have a list of things that you can put on sticky notes. You can hang it on your mirror in the bathroom, in your car, wherever it is that you would see it every day to remind you. So for me personally, pink stands for Princess in Need of a King, Journey Pink, the journey of a princess in need of a king. And so pink became my reminder that I'm not trash. I am a princess. I am not worthless. I am a princess. And I promise you, I don't always feel like a princess. I've never always felt like a princess. That isn't something that comes natural to me. However, those reminders remind me of who God is and who He says I am. And because He is my King and He is my Father, then He has called me His princess because I am His daughter and I'm dearly loved. I'm not tolerated.
Right. Right. And I know, like, I never portrayed confidence as a child, as a young adult. I was always very guarded, very shy and insecure, and it showed. I didn't show confidence at all because I didn't feel confident at all. I always felt less than, and it showed. If people would ask me a question, I would answer so quietly that they probably wouldn't hear and would ask me again. And if I could answer in one word, yes or no, I would answer in one word. And I remember writing when I wrote in high school and even in college, my writing was so tiny, which is an indication that you have very low self worth, that you feel tiny, insignificant. And the teachers used to say, well, you need to write bigger because I can't read your writing because it's so tiny. And those are indications of being insecure, feeling worthless, feeling just like nobody.
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a teenager, I was at camp and they were talking about pride. And then they were talking about people who are meek, because I considered myself meek and quiet. And they would say, well, meekness and quietness, that's just an actual form of pride. And I like,
Right.
no, it's not. It wasn't pride at all. I didn't feel worthy. People that are survivors really have a low self esteem because they have been treated without respect. They've been treated as if they aren't worth anything. They aren't worth being protected. They aren't worth being just cared for
Right.
in general. There are people that are not survivors that also struggle with low self esteem as well. And I think partly we tell ourselves these lies, and maybe it's Satan putting those lies in our head, in our voice, just mimics that. But I think we need to combat those lies with, like you said, go through the word of God. And when you see something that God says about who you are,
Mm-hmm.
write it down, put it on a sticky note. Um, and say it to yourself, saying things to yourself, writing them down, and then saying them to yourself in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
That is another reinforcement. You write it down, you repeat it to yourself. And I just saw something the other day about things that we should do to help us rewire our brain. And one of the things is you get up in the morning and you brush your teeth with the opposite hand than you normally brush your teeth. If you're right-handed, you brush your teeth with your left hand, which gets your other side of your brain working. And then look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love you. And you can say 10 things that are positive, that about what God thinks about you, who God is. Say those things to yourself because those rewire your brain to think the positive things that are true and get rid of the negative things that are not true. And I think that we do need to rewire our
Mm-hmm.
brains because trauma has really impacted our brain and who we think we are. And actually helps keep us trapped in that feeling of unworthiness and I can't make a difference. And as long as you feel that way, you are not going to be able to move on and grow and gain the confidence that you need to do the things that God's created you to do. He didn't create us to feel unworthy, He created us in His own image.
Right. I remember when my counselor said that the brain could be rewired. And I was like, really? So I can be fixed? Like this stuff that I think doesn't have to be there anymore? And she was like, yes, that's absolutely right. And so I think that's a really important point to make, is that while we may have spent a long time thinking a certain way, it doesn't make it true, and it doesn't have to stay that way. There are things that we can do to bring truth into our minds and our hearts, because it affects all of it. It affects your body, your mind, your spirit, your emotions, your relationships, your work, your parenting. And with the low self-esteem, one of the things that I've read somewhere, or maybe it was in training, but it talked about how a child will internalize that there's something wrong with them. And when I read this, it really made sense to me, because when you are abused by your caretaker, the person who is supposed to love you, supposed to protect you, and for the most part, they project in the outside world a very good personality. Like they're charming, they're kind, they're compassionate, they're all these things. But you get this glimpse behind closed doors of something that's very sinister and very evil. And how do you wrap your head around that as a child, right? It's like a bad dream. It's like a nightmare. And I think the way it was presented in that training or in that book I read, it's easier for a child to think something must be wrong with me than to think the person who is supposed to love me, that everyone loves, is the monster, or something's wrong with them. There must be something wrong with me. And then guess what? It happens again. So for me personally, it happened several times, and with other people. And that only reinforced that lie that something is wrong with me. Something is in me that makes men do this to me. Something is in me or on my head that tells people it's okay to hurt me or abuse me. And that is not because something is wrong with you. That is because abuse, unfortunately, sets you up to be abused again, because it makes you vulnerable. It makes you not have a voice. It makes you freeze and respond to the trauma in ways that someone who hadn't been abused would not respond. So, for example, in the next situation or opportunity, someone who's trying to groom you puts their hand on your leg. Well, if you are a child that's been abused, you know in that moment to sit still and to get through it, and hopefully it'll end soon. Whereas someone who's never been that may be like, what do you, get your hand off of me or whatever. But you don't know that response. That was not ever an option for you. Mm-hmm. And so a person who is a groomer and a predator and a monster will do something simple like that just to see how is she going to respond. And if they have that trauma response of freezing, fawning, it may be fight, it may be flight, but it may not be. And if it's fawn or freeze, then they will keep trying. And then again, you just feel trapped and you feel like it's you, but it's what trauma does. It's part of what the trauma does.
Conversations of Hope extends beyond this podcast. Michelle and I are available to speak at women's, youth, church, and community events.
We offer presentations on abuse prevention, healing, and empowerment.
To learn more about our speaking engagements and personal coaching and support services, visit our website, conversationsofhopepodcast.org.
Together, we can inspire change and promote healing in your community.
And when you're abused in childhood, usually you were not given permission to say no. You weren't given a voice. As a matter of fact, your voice was silenced. If you tried to use your voice, it was, you listen to me, you do what I say. You don't feel like your voice matters or that you can use your voice. And that's why it's so important for us to give our children a
Hmm.
voice and listen to our kids, because sometimes they misinterpret things. You know, we see things as an adult one way, and they see it as a child a totally different way. And sometimes we don't listen to them, or we laugh at them when they say something that this makes them feel this way. And you say, well, that was just an innocent thing that happened. It really wasn't that. We as adults need to listen to kids to find out really what are they thinking, because their minds don't work maybe in the same way, just like some of the sayings that we say, like, oh, that church is going downhill. A child will think, well, that church is sitting on a hill and it's sliding down, that it's going
Right.
to slide down the hill, because they take it
Hmm.
literally, and we didn't mean it that way. So they're thinking, okay, the church is going to fall off that hill, it's going to go in the road or whatever. So we need to listen to our kids, find out what they're really thinking. And I think a lot of times we need to reinforce the value of our kids so that they don't think that they're worthless. We need to work with our young people on their self esteem, on the lies that they're telling themselves about who they are and about who God is. We need to help them to to combat and turn around those lies before they get to be an adult, and then have to deal with them that they have compounded because they've been building up year after year after year, and they have all of these lies and they feel insurmountable, like this has to be true because I've been telling myself it's true for so long.
Right. And when you're a child who's being abused, you are dealing with adult things that you have no concept of what they are.
Mhm.
You have no concept. And a lot of time it's been being presented as love. Like this is
Right.
love. And so you don't know what the words are to say. And you don't even have the vocabulary or the knowledge. And it may take a long time to get there to understand, even as an adult, like when you are an adult and you're in therapy or counseling or you're processing your childhood, when you're processing it at that age as that child, it's still hard to put words to it. Just because you're grown now and you know what the words are, like you
Right.
mentioned, brushing your teeth with your left hand if you're right handed, that's what I would do in therapy. Sometimes she would have me write with my left hand, like ask the question and then write with my left hand. Sometimes it was colored pencils or whatever. And I would be, it's like that part of my brain would get activated and the words, as much as the child in me could say, would come out. But they weren't adult words, because just because it was adult things happening to me, it was happening as a child, and a child does not have those words, which is why we have to really listen, like really listen and pay attention, because they're not going to be able to say, this is the adult things that are happening to me. They're not going to know those words, and they're not going
Right.
to know how to express it. And they're going to feel a lot of shame, a lot of um, low self esteem, and needing permission to speak. So,
Right. Right. Because I didn't tell anyone for many reasons, but when your father, the one that's supposed to protect you and you're supposed to trust, is your abuser, who do you trust after that? Because
right,
I trusted this person and he violated that trust. Who do I
right,
trust? And luckily, in my case, I still trusted God. And I would pray and I would talk to God about all those things. But I still felt trapped because who would I go to? I didn't want to go to my mom because I didn't want to hurt her. All of these things go through the mind of a child, and then they just feel
Yep.
trapped. Like there's nowhere I can go, there's no one I can turn to. And no matter what I do, the results are not going to be good. You know, it's within the family, and what happens to my dad, what happens to me, am I going to foster care, is he going to jail? All of these things go into the mind of a child, and they're adult issues that a child cannot handle by
Right.
themselves, and they don't feel that they can trust
Mm.
anybody. So if you think that there's something going on with a child, try to at least listen to them and be their friend. Just be there for them so that when they do feel like they can talk, that maybe they would trust you to help them.
Right. And a lot of times asking, like always ask, because that's your first thing. Ask. Is someone doing something inappropriate to you? Is someone touching you where they shouldn't be? Is anyone making you feel uncomfortable? Like you can ask those kind of questions. It doesn't mean they're going to answer, and it doesn't mean they're going to answer truthfully because they have fear, severe fear that is instilled in them. But you could ask things like, how are you doing? How are you sleeping? Where do you feel safe? What makes you feel safe? Um, does your stomach hurt? Do you feel anxious? Like those kind of questions can at least point you to that there may be something that's off or there may be something that's wrong. But you have to remember that they have built up a mask, they have built up a wall. We do not trust anyone. We cannot trust anyone. We are not safe. So I'm not telling you anything. But if you can get them to at least acknowledge that something is wrong, I'm struggling in this way, maybe that wall will come down enough when they feel safe with you, and just keep being there for them, keep asking, and maybe they will tell you the truth or at least give you some information that can help you get to the bottom of what's going on and who's hurting them.
Right. And another question that you can ask is, who are your safe
Mm-hmm.
people? You know, who would you go to if you feel uncomfortable or anxious or afraid?
Right.
Who do you feel like you can go to? Is it your teacher? Is it your mom and dad? Who do you feel safe with? And maybe that will give you an indication or may help them to think of, do I have safe people? Who are my safe people? Because sometimes you don't even think about that as a kid. Who are my safe people? But even the new books that they have to talk to your kids about their body and different safety issues, some of the things that they say in those books are, who are your safe people? Who can you go to when you need to tell somebody that you're uncomfortable or whatever? Is it Aunt Joe? Is it Aunt Susie? Even if it's not me as your mom, who else could you go to? If you don't want to tell me, who do you think you can go to? So I think that's good to do in the family, is say, we need to think about who can you go to if you're at school and you're being bullied. Who are your safe people at school?
Mm-hmm.
Who are your safe people at home? Who are their safe people at church? Different things so that the kids can think about, do I have safe people? And who would I talk to? Who is going to help me? And and if somebody doesn't help you, then you can go to somebody
Right.
else. It's like some of those books say, um, tell, and if they don't listen, then tell somebody
Mm-hmm.
else. And if they don't listen, tell somebody else. So it's giving the children a voice. I think that's so important because the kids are on the front lines and we can't be with our kids 24/7. And we need to equip them with tools. And one of those tools is giving them a
Mm-hmm.
voice. And another tool is helping them to recognize who they should go and use their voice with. If this person doesn't listen to me when I say no, I'm going to go tell somebody. And who am I going to go tell? So we give them a voice and then we say, okay, now that you have your voice, Who can you use it with?
Right.
Let's build up a safety network, a circle of people that you feel are safe to um, help you when you are uncomfortable or when you are scared. And even having code words for if you're at a friend's house and things are not feeling right to you, that you can call your mom and say, "Hey, mom, my stomach doesn't feel good. Can you come pick me up right away?" Things like that that you can tell your kids when you're in a situation, if you're at a youth group event and you don't feel right about what's happening, you can call and you can say, you know, you can have a code word, but you can also just say, "I really am not feeling good and I need to come home right
Right.
now." Your friend wants you to go someplace with them and you don't really want to go, but they say, "Ask your mom." And your mom doesn't know that you don't want to
Right.
go. So you have to have a code word to say, "I don't really want to go with him, so say no." You need to talk to your kids about things like that because I always thought my kids wanted to go wherever their friends were asking them to go. And there were times that they really didn't want to go, but and the other person is right there when they
Right.
ask. So you as a parent might be thinking, "Well, I don't want to come off as the mean mom that doesn't let their kids do anything." But sometimes we just have to be the mean mom that doesn't let their kids do anything
Right.
to protect them.
Right. And I think you implied this, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Give them permission to say anything because the predator is telling them you have to keep this a secret. You cannot tell anybody. If you tell anybody, here's all the horrible things that are going to happen. And
Right.
you do not have any right to use your voice. Be quiet. Don't say anything. Keep the secret. And so, on the other side, as parents, you have to be able to encourage them to talk. You have permission to say anything. You can tell me anything, anytime. I will believe you. I will be here for you, and I will do whatever it takes to help you because they are telling them to keep secrets.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is keeping that line of communication open with your kids
Yeah.
so that if something does happen, they feel like they can come to you at any time and you're not too busy for them. Sometimes we get so busy that we really don't sit down and take time with our kids. We're so busy doing life that we don't have time. And our kids' lives are busy as well. They have school, they have extracurricular activities, they have church things. And we're just so busy as families that we don't just take the time to sit down together and talk. And a lot of times we don't even eat at the table together. We're grabbing something on the road on the way from here
Mhm.
to here, and we have to get something to eat. And we're driving, and we tell the kids to be quiet in the back seat because we're trying to concentrate on the traffic and what's going on the road. And we don't take time to talk to our kids and listen to our kids. And so they feel like they aren't important, and what they have to say to us isn't important. And then if they do have something to that's important, they're saying, "Well, mom doesn't have time or dad doesn't have time." So we do need to make time to make sure that our kids know that they are important to us and their feelings matter to us and they can talk to us about anything, which means that it takes time
Right.
to listen and time away from whatever we have going on to say, "Okay, my children are important to me. I need to step away from other things and just listen to them instead of saying, "Okay, I've got to fix dinner in 5 minutes. So what do you have to tell me?
Mhm.
Tell me quick so I can get back to doing dinner." It's not easy in today's world to take time to listen. And kids are really being pushed off to the side a lot by everybody. The teachers at school are really, really busy. the people teaching Sunday school are really, really busy. You know, the pastor is really busy. Everybody's busy, and the kids think, well, they don't have time for me. And they already don't feel like they're important because we were talking about low self esteem. I'm not worth people, like
Right.
you said, people think that I'm bothering them, and I don't want to bother my mom. I don't want to bother Aunt Susie. I don't want to bother this person because I feel so low. And we need to make our kids feel like they are worthy and they aren't a bother and they aren't a nuisance and they aren't just somebody that we have to deal with because we have to deal with them, whether they're in our class or whether they're in our family. So that's one way that we really need to build up the self esteem of our kids. Let them know that they are important and we want to hear what they have to say.
Yeah. And like I said in the beginning about what the word says about who God says you are and what the word says who God is, especially if those things got distorted for you somehow. I have a bookmark for Journey Pink that I give out with my book at conferences, and it's just declarations that I've written down of some of the big ones. Like, I am brave, I am enough, I am chosen, I am his masterpiece, I am pure, I am a princess, I am a gift. And then on the back, he is my king, he is my protector, he is my provider, he makes beauty from ashes, I am loved. So those are just some of the examples, but you can put things like that on a note card and again, have it displayed. I had a friend make this for me and put it in a nice little diamond frame, but my identity is in Christ. Who am I? I am a saint, a trophy of Christ's victory, born again of imperishable seed, a new creation, complete in Christ. So it's a whole list of truth that can combat those negative thoughts and those lies that are in our heads. So I really think going through the Bible and discovering them is powerful. But again, if you don't have that yet, just start with something. Start with a list somewhere. If you email me, Michelle@journeypink.com, I'll send you a free bookmark. But that's a great way to start. Like she said, brush your teeth and look at that bookmark and read those words out loud and take that in. For me, seeing anything pink, wearing pink, seeing a pink sky reminds me that I'm a princess. And so that's why I wear a lot of pink and I pay attention to a lot of pink sunsets and the color pink, because I need that reminder. We all do. And so
Right.
we can rewire our brains. We're not stuck here.
Right. And God loves you and He wants more for you. He created you in His image and to bring glory to
Yeah.
Himself. We hope this episode of Conversations of Hope has been a source of comfort and inspiration.
Remember, you are not alone on this journey of healing.
Visit conversationsofhopepodcast.org for more resources and information.
Please subscribe or follow and share with those who might need this message of hope. Until next time, keep hope alive.